older adults with mild cognitive impairment scored 13% higher on cognitive tests after taking at least 5,000 IU of vitamin D daily. This is Planetterrian Daily, episode 160. Here's a quick look at threads that kept coming up across the past week. Planetterrian Daily continued tracking how basic measurements, from tissue stability to synaptic pruning, reshape what we expect from long-term health. Coverage of Meta's tools highlighted new ways researchers are handling large genomic and environmental datasets. And AWS infrastructure updates kept surfacing in discussions of scalable climate and imaging models. Together they show the same pattern, steady refinement of the tools and observations that let us watch slow processes unfold. Adults with mild cognitive impairment and sleep problems who took at least 5,000 IU of vitamin D daily scored more than 13% higher on a cognitive test than those taking none. Researchers observed the difference in a group already experiencing both cognitive and sleep issues. The preliminary findings point to vitamin D as a potentially modifiable factor during an early window of cognitive decline. The work suggests further trials could test whether supplementation alters progression in this population. Next steps include larger studies to confirm dose-response relationships and long-term effects on brain function. Now, shifting to a different area of research. Astronomers identified stars that repeatedly pass close to supermassive black holes and survive each encounter while producing new light bursts. In some systems, the flares fade with each return. Researchers propose that stars already spinning rapidly before capture explain both the fading flares and their unusually tight orbits. The pattern emerges from observations of multiple systems rather than single events. Further monitoring of flare timing and star rotation rates will test this explanation. On a different note, the Greenland shark reaches ages of 400 years with eyes that display little visible aging. Researchers examined eye tissues from sharks across a wide age range and found structural stability that contrasts with typical vertebrate aging patterns. The species lives in cold, deep waters, which may slow cellular processes linked to tissue decline. The findings add to limited data on extreme longevity in vertebrates. Continued tissue sampling could reveal whether similar stability appears in other organs. Next up, mice that developed compulsive drinking showed more than double the activity in a stress and addiction-related brain region after alcohol abstinence. The elevated signal appeared before the animals resumed drinking. Researchers suggest this activity could eventually serve as a predictor of relapse risk in models of alcohol use disorder. The timing of the change points to a pre-drinking neurobiological shift rather than a response to renewed intake. Follow-up work will examine whether blocking this activity reduces relapse rates. Moving to another finding. Oxymetazoline, a common nasal decongestant ingredient, appeared in Massachusetts laboratory studies examining cellular aging pathways. The work explores whether the compound modulates mechanisms tied to longevity biology. Researchers screened existing molecules for effects on aging-related processes rather than developing new agents. The approach leverages known safety data to accelerate testing of repurposed compounds. Additional assays will determine dose ranges and downstream cellular outcomes. Shifting focus. NASA-led researchers used AI to create detailed maps showing how Arctic soils remain near freezing for days or weeks after surface temperatures drop. This zero curtain period delays full ground freeze and influences carbon release timing. The maps cover large areas at higher resolution than previous models. The data improve understanding of seasonal carbon fluxes in permafrost regions. Future iterations will incorporate additional satellite inputs to refine predictions. On another front, researchers applied AI to decode a DNA segment that initiates transcription in approximately 60% of human genes. Precise activation of these sequences supports normal cell function, while errors can contribute to disorders including cancer. The model distinguished functional initiator patterns from surrounding DNA. Validation against existing genomic datasets confirmed the sequence's prevalence. Expanded application of the tool could map regulatory elements in additional cell types. Turning to a separate line of work, decades of studies on meditation have produced variable results on cognitive and physiological outcomes. Systematic reviews show some consistent short-term effects on attention and stress markers, yet replication across populations remains limited. Larger trials have begun to separate specific practices from general relaxation. The body of work highlights the need for standardized protocols and objective measures. Ongoing meta-analyses aim to identify which outcomes hold across independent cohorts. Now, another environmental observation. Modeling of river erosion in Canada's high Arctic showed thawed riverbeds can erode up to 10 times faster than frozen ground. The finding contradicted initial expectations that frozen banks would resist erosion more strongly. Field measurements and simulations linked the increase to changes in sediment cohesion and water flow. The results affect projections of landscape change under continued permafrost thaw. Further sites will test whether the pattern holds across different Arctic river systems. Next, regular activity preserves muscle mass and supports metabolic rate after weight reduction, making sustained maintenance more feasible. Mechanisms include improved fat oxidation, appetite regulation, and blood glucose control. The work distinguishes exercise's limited direct effect on large-scale weight loss from its stronger role in preventing regain. Data come from longitudinal observations rather than short-term interventions alone. Continued tracking of participants will clarify optimal activity levels for long-term stability. Now, here's something most people get wrong. Most people assume exercise is the main driver for dropping pounds in the first place. In reality, its stronger documented role is keeping weight off once it is lost. Right now, as you move through daily activities, muscle tissue you maintain through regular movement continues to burn calories at a higher rate than fat tissue would. Studies tracking participants after weight reduction show that those who stay active regain less because preserved muscle supports resting metabolism and improves how the body handles incoming energy. The next time you finish a workout after reaching a lower weight, recognize that the session is primarily protecting the progress already made rather than creating new large-scale loss. Watch for upcoming trials that quantify exact weekly thresholds for different populations. Changing topics. People speaking multiple languages showed brain features that appeared up to 13 years younger than those of monolinguals, with 4 language speakers displaying the largest difference. Earlier acquisition and higher fluency strengthened the association. The pattern emerged from structural brain imaging across age groups. Researchers propose that managing multiple language systems may engage cognitive reserve mechanisms. Additional cohorts will examine whether the effect extends to dementia risk reduction. Moving along, analysis of thousands of sequenced animal genomes revealed that chromosomes retain recognizable segments from an ancestor that lived more than 600 million years ago. Despite repeated fusions, splits, and rearrangements, certain synthetic blocks persist across distant lineages including humans, octopuses, and corals. The study mapped these conserved regions to trace irreversible evolutionary roots. The findings constrain models of how genome architecture can change over deep time. Expanded sampling of additional phyla will test the generality of these highways. On a different note, re-examination of historical data indicates that the magnetosphere does not fully shield the planet from extreme solar events as previously assumed. Analysis revealed pathways where solar wind energy can reach the atmosphere even during strong magnetic shielding. The work revises earlier models of space weather protection. Improved forecasting will incorporate these additional entry routes. Satellite and ground observations will continue to quantify event frequency. Turning to one more finding, mice entering hibernation lost roughly half their synapses, yet retained previously learned behaviors after emerging. The reduction occurred across multiple brain regions without erasing established memory traces. Researchers tracked synaptic density before, during, and after the hibernation period. The results suggest compensatory mechanisms maintain functional circuits despite structural pruning. Further imaging will determine whether similar pruning occurs in other seasonal states. Finally, new measurements show how common materials accumulate and discharge static charge under typical indoor conditions. The work quantifies charge transfer rates between fabrics, surfaces, and air. Findings explain why certain environments produce more frequent shocks than others. The data refine models used in industrial and laboratory settings. Continued experiments will test charge behavior at varying humidity levels. Before we go, keep an eye on dose response data from the vitamin D trials now moving into larger cohorts. That covers today's science and health news. Share this with someone who's curious about the latest research. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NERA Network. Links in the show notes. Quick tip from the network, try Modern Investing Techniques next. Modern strategies for Canadian and US investors. Every NERA Network show is free at neranetwork.com. And on the website, every episode's visuals live in our free image gallery at neranetwork.com gallery. Royalty free under Creative Commons. Download with attribution. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.